naira Ways and Means debt to the central bank into securitized debt. But here's today's big hard fact. The limit on Ways and Means borrowing in a single year is 5% of federal government's revenue from the previous year. And the problem here is that most of the executive's Ways and Means borrowing since 2015 has exceeded this legal limit. So critics say that the National Assembly has just approved an illegality for which Nigerian taxpayers, myself included, that's myself, Nigerian taxpayers will be paying for decades. But supporters say that this was all avoidable. It was all unavoidable, rather, because of the government's revenue crash. Now, joining me to discuss this situation is an analyst with SBM Intelligence, Kelechi Ogu. Kelechi, welcome to Hard Facts. Good to have you again.
Hi, Sandra. Thank you for having me.
Lagos, let's also hear from you. What questions or observations about the Ways and Means situation do you have? 0700-993-993-993. Now, before we dive deep into this thing, Kelechi, let's start with the most obvious question. First things first. What is Ways and Means borrowing? What are the legal limits to the Ways and Means borrowing?
Right, Sandra. So, if you have like a friend who has a regular job, a regular source of income, or is working on a project that requires short-term funding. Maybe they are building an apartment, building a house, and then they need to put in some fittings and furniture, and you say, oh, let me borrow you money because I know you would return it. Let me give you like urgent 100k or something because I know you would return it. That's what Ways and Means is. It's urgent fund to meet fiscal deficit shortfalls. So what I mean is, if the government has a revenue of 10 trillion, they have a shortfall of 4 trillion, and they've gone to the markets, they've gone to the debt market, the euro bond, they've done corporate bonds, they've issued treasury bills, and then they still have like an urgent shortfall that they need to meet. That's when they can go to the central bank to ask for Ways and Means. Right. So when ASU comes up with a demand that they did not plan for, and ASU is holding them to ransom, you have this issue in Sudan that has come up. Maybe it was unprepared for. Maybe it's more than the size of what they have in the service-wide vote or capital supplementation budget for contingencies. And they're like, oh, well, it will take time for us to start looking for an account firm to work with, to start doing a bond. So let's just go to the CBN and quickly get that money, knowing that it's urgent. So that's what Ways and Means is. Maybe, I don't know, for government, should we say urgent 1 billion or something that they can get, right? So that's what it is.
Urgent 1 billion, I like that. Okay.
Yes,
now, what are the legal limits to this thing?
So the legal limit is, like you said, 5% of the previous year's total revenue, total federal government revenue. Because I've heard people say it's 5% of total national revenue. No, it's 5% of the total revenue that comes to the federal government when they've done when they've cut the at the end of the month. That one that comes to the federal government for that year, the total revenue of that. That's how I understand it.
Now, have the CBN and the federal executive adhered to the rules for Ways and Means borrowing?
It's that obvious question, of course not. You say it is 2015.
I like to ask obvious questions sometimes,
right?
So that it's not be as if Sandra is the one that said it.
Right.
Yeah.
So you put me on the crucifix.
Now they'll quote you.
If I'm wrong. So I just looked at some good data that SBM quickly gathered before. I think my head of research was saying the data had been removed from the CBN website. So I just looked at some data that they put together, or we put together, and I think in 2014 it was 7%. So maybe we could, or 8% rather, of 2013's revenue, which is wrong. So I think we should just put it out there.
Mm.
But from 2015, like it ballooned. 2015 was 24.56%.
Okay.
2016 it was 56 about percent. It just kept ballooning up like that. 2019, because we didn't have data on that spreadsheet, was not for 2020 and 2021, but I'm sure they were over 100% as well.
Mm-hmm.
In 2019 was 177%. In 2018 was 140 something percent. So it's like they've been using it without regard for the law, and the reason why they're able to do that is because there is no penalty for default. So that's the problem.
That's the problem.
If there was penalty for default, and the CBN governor, the Minister of Finance, means you can't touch the president. The CBN and the Minister of Finance could go to jail, or someone can bring a suit against them for doing it. Then it would have made a lot of sense, because see, any borrowing has to go. The federal government is doing has to go through the National Assembly. Any borrowing a state is doing has to go through the state executive. So this ways and means is completely different from your normal borrowing, and that's why it should not be abused, because the National Assembly did not approve. It's not something that you need to pass to the National Assembly. That's why it said emergency. I mean, you can't just say emergency and then remove the ceiling completely. Right? So
Some emergencies require you to remove the ceiling completely now.
If emergencies require you to, if you have to remove the ceiling completely all the time, then there's no fiscal bulletproof. Because as the president, you could just say, well, I consider it an emergency. It does not break the bar. It doesn't. If I consider an emergency, then it goes. And that's what happens with the Fiscal Responsibility Act. So the Fiscal Responsibility Act says you can't borrow more than 3% of your debt to GDP in a year, or a rate set by the National Assembly. And Buhari has done that several times on the basis of security.
My God.
Right.
And you think about back in January, the Senate rejected President Buhari's request to approve.
Yeah, because that's also illegal.
So what has changed between then and now? Why does the National
Nothing.
Assembly no longer have a problem with this?
To be honest, we'll have to ask them. We'll have to ask Benjamin Kalu of the House of Reps, and is it Namdas, or who's the spokesperson for the Senate? They'll be in the best position to tell us what has changed, because nothing has changed. The next section that forbids borrowing above 5% forbids the securitization of ways and means.
Okay. What is securitization? Tell us what securitization is.
So securitization means converting ways and means into a debt instrument, which is what the federal government has done. So something a debt that you can trade and then pay interest on.
Okay.
And by the way, the interest rate for the ways and means is 9%. It's less than even corporate bond yields and euro bond yields.
Is this good or is this bad?
I don't know who will buy it. It's bad for the people who will buy it, because they can buy better bonds that have more yield than that.
If you had to hazard a guess about what has changed for the National Assembly, what do you think it is? Is it because the elections are over? Has the presidency suddenly made some new compelling argument?
There's no new compelling argument, and I'm usually scared of making guesses on what I don't know about. So,
if you had to make an educated guess, what would your educated guess be?
Educated guess would be that, well, the rubber stamp assembly, and they just wanted to play ball small.
Just wanted to play ball small. Okay. Now, of course, Senate Leader Gobert said that if the National Assembly did not approve the conversion, the federal government would end up paying an extra 1.8 billion naira in interest on the ways and means debt. Yes. And he also believes that the executive had no choice than to take the ways and means loans because revenue fell sharply. What do you make of that explanation?
Like I said, if they wanted to use ways and means anyhow, they should have gone to the National Assembly to change change the act.
Okay.
Right? If they wanted to be insensitive and they felt that the ways and means borrowing, which is there to prevent government excessiveness, because like I said, it is the constitutional duty of the National Assembly to approve borrowings.
Right.
So if they wanted to change it, then they should have gone to National Assembly to say, please amend Section 38 of the CBN Act for us,
Right.
so that ways and means becomes something that we can dip into, whether there's an emergency or not.
Right.
So that ways and means can be like a way to a devious way or circuitous way to bypass you when we need money. Right? They should have done that.
Okay.
And that's what the National Assembly has just done, because they've just waived their right and responsibility to approve government borrowings. Remember that, I think, not sure of this, but the House of Reps wanted to impeach the president when they spent the excess crude account to buy the Tucano jets, right?
Yes.
Because there was impeachable ground for that. And why was there impeachable ground for that? Because the federal government went and spent humongous sum of money without going through the National Assembly. So what's the difference between going to the excess crude account to remove $196 million and going to the CBN to remove 22.7 trillion naira?
Now, on the one hand, the executive obviously broke the limit on ways and means borrowing, and the CBN enabled that. On the other hand, the executive insists that it had no choice because revenues crashed and there was a serious risk that the budget could not be funded. Do you agree that the executive had no choice but to borrow from the CBN in excess of the ways and means limit, or were there other choices available to the executive?
What the federal government should tell us, and the debt management office should tell us, is, had they exceeded the amount of euro bonds that they could take? Had they exceeded the amount of corporate bonds that they could take? Had they exceeded the amount of treasury bills they could buy? Had they exceeded the amount of sukuk they could issue? Had they exceeded the amount of sovereign bonds and FGM bonds that they could release? That's what we need to know. And then, could they have cut back on fuel subsidies? Could they have cut back on electricity tariff subsidies? Could they not have looked for more inventive ways of increasing revenue, like, say, getting a build, operate and transfer project to build a deep sea port in Ibaka in Akwa Ibom, or a deep sea port in Cross River that could become a revenue generator? Could they have made the congested Apapa and put a cargo line on the Lagos-Ibadan Express Rail? Could they have done things to reduce inflation, and then after that, could they have borrowed money for things like reducing inflation, for things like increasing electricity supply, and could they have honestly spent that money? Because borrowing is not the problem. The problem is, what are you borrowing money from? And the monies you are borrowing, are they breaking the rules?
Now, some would argue that they did borrow and that they did spend money on some of the things you're mentioning at the moment.
There's no cargo line on the Lagos-Ibadan Express Rail, and the Chinese guys handling the project have said that if there's no cargo line, the passenger tariff price that you put on it is kind of subsidized, and if you are not taking cargo on that line, then we are losing money. So I wonder when the Chinese guys will even make their profit to be able to say, okay, we can hand over this project to you.
Could the executive have gone to the National Assembly before going to the CBN for ways and means, and instead
the right thing.
So ask them to borrow more, to approve more borrowing?
More borrowing,
right?
Yes.
So they could have done that.
Yes.
Why didn't they do that? Yes, you're not the spokesperson, but tell me your thoughts.
I don't know, because if that type of that amount of money is not a function of emergency, and Sandra, how do you have an emergency of 8 trillion in a year, which is like close to the total budget for that year? So what about the debt deficits that you already planned and the debts that you already planned? Are you saying that you couldn't borrow as much as you initially intended to borrow? If you say, okay, in 2020 there was they borrowed at least 4.34 trillion according to Nairametrics, but the Minister of Finance was quoted as saying 2.8 trillion. Okay, you could say there was COVID. Maybe we can excuse them for 2020. What's the excuse for 2019? 100 and something. What's the excuse for 2018? Remember that oil prices began to improve towards the end of 2017, after OPEC and Russia and Saudi Arabia did that OPEC plus deal.
Yes.
Yes. And then oil prices came back up. So the government should have had more revenue. But when you're taking out that revenue to subsidize fuel purchase in myriad ways, you are subsidizing the importation of fuel. So you are paying for the forex differential, you are paying for demurrage, you are paying for the cost differential in terms of your artificial price ceiling. Then when the product comes into the country, you are paying bridging fund to make sure that everybody gets that fuel at the same price, which at the end of the day it never happens. You are paying for all of that, and then you are crying that you don't have money. I don't know. It beats common logic. Why the federal government would decide not to be creative? Well, it's the CBN is supposed to have some level of independence, but under Buhari they've not had independence, so it's easy to just go to them and dip their hand in the pool and collect the money they want.
All right, Lagos, join the conversation. 0700-993-993-993 01465-7190. WhatsApp is 080-959-75805. So what are the terms? We've talked about securitization a bit, and you said that securitization simply means that the federal government will be able to borrow more money from traditional lenders, then use that money to repay the CBN, right?
Yes.
So now it's just going to have regular debt. That's what it's going to be.
Yes.
What are the terms for this securitized debt? For how long are we going to be? So 9%.
It's a 40-year bond.
40-year bond. What does that mean? What does that mean?
Per annum.
So what does that mean? Explain it to us the way you explained that urgent money for furnishing the house. I love that example you gave.
Yeah. So you borrow somebody money for 40 years. That's what it means.
That's it. So
and then the person pays you 9% of the money that they borrowed from you every year.
So if somebody is 30 years old now, their tax will be paying that bill for until they're 70.
Yes.
Okay.
Lagos. You get 9% every year anyways.
Do I get 9% every year as a taxpayer?
Yes, per annum.
I'm going to get 9% per annum?
Yes, that's the yield on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on. Explain that to me. How's that going to happen? Where does that interest go? You say you take your normal bond, right? Mm-hmm.
Or you invest in someone and they have to give you a return on investment of maybe 10% on that money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the same thing. So let's say you have I don't know, like say you bought some bonds or treasury bills, maybe 364-day or 365-day bonds or 2-year bonds, and then so you bought it at maybe you bought it maybe when it was being sold. You can buy from when it was being sold or from secondary market. So let's say you bought it and what happens then is that the government or the person you borrow that money from pays you the particular interest that was quoted on it. So say you went and bought a 364-day bond at 11%, right? So you are paid 11% per annum, at the expiration of those 364 days. If it's a 2-year bond, I want to believe that you are paid the first year and the second year. So.
Okay. All right. Lagos, let's come to you. 0700-993-993. That's women. Women, call us on 01465-7190. What questions do you have about this Ways and Means restructuring? Do you think that the National Assembly should have approved it? What observations do you have about the Ways and Means situation? We've got WhatsApp as well. WhatsApp is 080-959-75805. 99.3. Hello. Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello.
It doesn't look like this person can hear me. 99.3. Hello.
Hello, Sandra.
Thanks for calling. What's your name, sir? Good evening.
Yeah, my name is Esosa.
Talk to me, Esosa.
I'm currently in traffic.
Welcome.
So, I think I like your analyst, and you really spoke very well. the truth is that part of the problem of this administration is when they came on board, I noticed their first or is it second budget they came up with, and they came up with a very unrealistic revenue, and because they want to justify the huge expenditure they want to expend. And my question was that where would they get this from? And some people were arguing that no, they can borrow, they can Nigeria can borrow about 60% of our GDP or thereabouts. But the truth of the matter is that the way I said that this government would have cut costs, because the truth of the matter is that the cost of most of our of the projects, or these federal government projects, are way too much, way too much. And it's rather unfortunate that why the government did not look at it, and they didn't care, and they have so many inexperienced hands coming on board, from guy from the finance to the budgeting office. They were not experienced, and it was rather unfortunate. And this is a mess we're already in. And I just pray that this economic administration will look at it critically and not make such a mistake, because we're in a time bomb that will explode very soon. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you very much for calling, Efosa. All right, we've got a message here.
Amen, Efosa. Amen.
We've got a message here from Timmy. Timmy from Ishaga says, it's a very regrettable thing that President Buhari has no regards for the rule of law as far as Nigeria is concerned. He's seen Nigeria as a country that has to abide by his ways of actions and deeds without considering the consequences. Unfortunately, those saddled with the responsibility to check his excesses have become accomplices as well. Timmy from Ishaga with that message there. We've got about 1 minute 30 seconds before we have to take a break. So let me talk to Pastor Solomon. Pastor Solomon, are you still there?
Yeah.
Yes, hi. Good evening. You've got 1 minute.
Yes. The problem we're having in this country is people who are leading us are not competent. You see, the young man who made that analysis, if they allow such people to be in the National Assembly or in the leadership position, the country will go far. But the old people who are leading us will not allow such people who have those brains to lead us. That is what we are facing in this country.
Sorry about that. I thought that was a great place to end it since we have to take a break. But Pastor Solomon, thank you so much for calling and sharing your thoughts. Now, I have a few other questions to ask our guest, who is an analyst from SBM Intelligence. SBM Intelligence is an intelligence gathering organization. They put out several reports, and one of the reports they put out as far back as November 2022 was on this ways and means business. And that's why we're having a conversation about it today. Should the National Assembly have approved the ways and means restructuring? Now, we'll keep talking about this particular problem that is now your problem for the next 40 years after we come back from this break. I am Sandra Ezekwesili. You're listening to Hard Facts on 99.3 Nigeria Info. Don't go away.
Your number one station for talk. Let's talk.
I did my first choice. Bros, it makes sense. No minimum deposit. Small money. That's all I had to start. And quick withdrawals on call. Oh yeah, those payouts saved me sometimes. Click withdraw. Correct. But my main reason for choosing Share for You, I had plenty to learn. The number one thing my papa always taught was to learn from winners. That's what I do every day. You have seen me copy winning traders with shareforyou.com. Abi, simple.
Dad, how are we celebrating Children's Day this year? Last year, you didn't make it up to us.
Don't worry, your daddy will take you out.
And mommy will find a place to go.
Oh, not again.
I overheard your conversations. My family and I will be going to Fun Factory for Children's Day party. My sister insisted it's a lovely, secure, and serene place with unique rides, fun activities, and lots more. I suggest this place. We will love it.
Fantastic! Let's go!
And your kids come and experience an extraordinary, fun-filled Children's Day extravaganza with family and friends in Fun Factory at number 10 Lai Yusuf Crescent off Admiralty Way, Lekki Phase 1. Kids enjoy amazing activities like prize presentations, arcade games, competitions, competitions, performances, dance, good music, and lots of fun. Adults could also partake in exciting outdoor games. Don't miss this fun. Children's Day Extravaganza will be happening on the 27th day of May 2023. Reservations are made upon arrival. For more information, visit our Instagram page, Fun Factory NG, or call 0809-828-8888. Sales of tickets will be at the Fun Factory office.
Wake up, sleepyhead! It's Girls' Day Out!
Fine. What's the plan for today?
Okay, so we have a 9 a.m. hair and nail appointment at the salon. At 3 p.m., we're going to watch the new superhero movie. Have drinks with Emeka and his friend at 6. At 8, we're going to try out the new restaurant at the mall and...
All that in one day? How?
Easy, my love. Start your day with a bowl of cereal made specially with Olympic milk. Let's get going.
Enjoy the goodness of Olympic milk to own your day. Olympic milk. Stay active.
Moves must be made. My people just to work hard. Dreams and challenges motivate us. But sometimes, when the journey gets tiring, all we need is something to push our limits.
Reactor, ignite your energy, bring out your inner champion. Reactor, ignite your energy, bring out your inner champion.
Reactor Energy Drink. What you need to push your limits. Push your limits.
We started with a vision of a future where innovation is at the forefront of business operations in Nigeria. We saw a world where technology is no longer just a tool, but a seamless extension of our lives, making business processes easier, faster, and more efficient. 15 years later, over 3,000 successfully implemented solutions to customers across the 36 states of Nigeria and Africa. Tennessee has solidified her spot as the leading IT solution company in Africa. It is beyond our dreams. We celebrate 15 years of tenacity, mastery, and leadership. Happy 15th anniversary to Tennessee Professional Services.
Mommy, when I grow up, I want to be like JJ.
Wow! Like JJ Okocha?
No, Mommy. JJ, the chosen one. He's an enemy's chosen one. Has hunters on the run.
Join JJ at Upbeat Center on the 13th, 14th, 20th, 21st, 26th, and 27th of May at 11 Admiralty Road, Lekki Phase 1. It's going to be a fun-filled day with trampolines, a movie screening, bouncy castles, plus the opportunity to meet the real JJ in person. Don't miss out.
We have been around for 120 years, and we're still on the move. As a distributor of renowned cars, we're still taking customers on a thrilling ride. With top-notch after-sales service, this time, we're bringing something new. We are CFAO, and we're about to take you on a journey. Nigeria, are you ready? A new journey begins.
Education is a key driver for growth for any economy. It's time to beam the spotlight on how technology can be used to strengthen the education sector, level the playing field, and make education accessible for all. Join us on EdTech Mondays on Nigeria Info Lagos at 6:45 a.m. every Monday as we discuss the key education stakeholders on emerging topics in education and the use of technology for addressing any challenges. EdTech Mondays is brought to you by MasterCard Foundation and Co-Creation Hub Nigeria.
That friend wish up for you, where you go fit rely on. And no matter the weather, he go always stay your side. Opportunity,
Need a customized account with zero bank charges, smooth banking with no stress? Choose the partner that enables limitless possibilities. Free transfer to other banks, free ATM card, and delivery. Download Paralex Bank app now.
Open account with Paralex Bank.
Paralex Bank.
What do you expect from a cab?
I expect a decent car,
courteous driver, and very professional.
I expect security, safety, and comfort.
I expect effective, timely, and great attitude. It's here. Hi-Ride app in Nigeria. Hi-Ride Carbs. Hi-Ride offers commission for drivers in Nigeria. Feel comfortable with maximum security anytime you ride with Hi-Ride. Get rewarded on points with each ride. Get cashback on card payment after every ride with lots of incentives. You also have the option of fixed fare or fare estimate. Download the app on App Store and Play Store.
Hi-Ride.
Hi-Ride.
Hi-Ride. Hi-Ride. Choose your fare. Let's ride.
Being the best.
All right, tape rolling. Take 50. Action.
Requires doing whatever it takes.
Cut. Let's go again.
So, as you give it your best shot,
tape rolling. Take 51. Action.
Stay energized with Super Commando energy drink. And fire on.
Super Commando.
Fire on to the African Magic Viewers' Choice Awards 2023.
Super Commando.
Super Commando energy drink. Fire on.
My friend, you don't buy new mattress?
Yeah, so they even dash me bag of rice join.
For real?
It is real. Buy any Mocha Flora or Mocha Wellbeing Regina mattress with 2 pillows and get a bag of rice free. Visit any accredited Mocha dealer nationwide to purchase. Offer valid while stocks last. Terms and conditions apply. Mocha, adding comfort to life.
Uncle Dentist, what are cavities? And how does Colgate protect my teeth from cavities? Does it use Kung Fu?
No, dear. Most tooth pains are caused by tooth holes called cavities. When you brush daily with Colgate Maximum Cavity Protection, its expert formula locks natural calcium in our teeth and helps protect them from cavities.
It's time to upgrade to the world's most chosen toothpaste, Colgate, because Colgate locks calcium in.
Keeps cavities out!
Colgate is recommended by the Nigerian Dental Association.
Over 11 million naira in cash prizes and 25 million naira worth of airtime to be won in the Devon Kings Mega Millionaire promo. To enter, just buy a 1 liter or 2 liter bottle of Devon Kings oil with the Mega Millionaire promo label. Scratch the panel to see the unique pin. Text Kings, leave a space and type your pin. Center 8011. You can win instant airtime and 1 million naira in the electronic weekly raffle draws. For more info, follow at Devon Kings NG on social media. Promo runs from now to the 26th of May 2023. Terms and conditions apply.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the biggest football fan festival is back. It's Goalfest, the Festival of Champions. Featuring exciting games, food, comedy, live music by some of the very best Nigerian music superstars. And you can watch the UEFA Champions League final on a huge screen. Goalfest 2023 will take place on the 10th of June at the Balmoral Convention Center, Federal Palace Hotel, Amadu Bello Way, Victoria Island, Lagos.
Time 2 p.m.
Get your tickets now available at www.goalfestnigeria.com. Goalfest 2023 is powered by Femi and the Gang and Football Republic. Proudly refreshed by Pepsi.
Sponsored by BetWinner.
We're back.
We're back.
We're back.
We're back.
We are back.
We're back on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
I'm Sandra Ezekwesili, Lagos. You're listening to Hard Facts on 99.3 Nigeria Info. Should the National Assembly have restructured the ways and means, what's the word borrowing. Now, I said when we started the show that the limit on ways and means borrowing is 5%. The limit in a single year is 5% of federal government's revenue from the previous year. In 2021, in fact, the federal government's actual revenue was 4.39 trillion naira. So which means that the maximum that the federal government could borrow from the CBN in 2022 by law was 219 billion naira. Guess how much we borrowed in 2022 from the CBN? 6 trillion naira. 24 times the legal limit. And back in January, the Senate rejected President Buhari's request to approve the backlog of Ways and Means borrowing, Ways and Means debt. And between then and now, Senate leader Gaber said that if the National Assembly did not approve the conversion, the federal government would end up paying an extra 1.8 billion naira in interest on the Ways and Means debt. And he believes that the executive had no choice than to take the Ways and Means loans because revenue fell sharply. Now, before the break, I was asking my guest, who is an analyst from SBM Intelligence, Kelechi Ogu, I was asking him, how come on the one hand, the executive obviously, of course, broke the limit on Ways and Means borrowing and the CBN enabled it. However, on the other hand, the executive insists that it had no choice because revenues crashed and there was a serious risk that the budgets could not be funded. And I asked him if he agreed that the executive had no choice but to borrow from the CBN in excess in excess of the Ways and Means limit, if there were other choices available to the executive. And Kelechi said yes, there were other choices available. If the federal government had exhausted all of those choices, then they can talk about exceeding the Ways and Means debt. And even before exceeding the Ways and Means debt, they could have gone to the National Assembly before going to the CBN for Ways and Means and asked them instead to approve more borrowing. Why didn't they do that? And then, of course, before the break, Kelechi was talking to us about securitization of the Ways and Means debt. He told us what that means. It means the federal government will borrow money from more traditional lenders, use that money to repay the CBN. So now the federal government will just have regular debt. And of course, he talked to us about the terms of the securitized debt. You know, how long we're going to be paying this money back. We'll be paying this money back for the next 40 years. So if you're 20 right now, you keep paying this basic until you're 60. If you are 30, you keep paying this basic until you're 70. If you're already 70, yeah, you get the picture. Yeah, you get the picture. Well, if you're already 70, you're probably retired and you're probably not paying anything. Do 70-year-old people pay taxes, Kelechukwu, in Nigeria? Do we have retired people still paying taxes?
I think people pay taxes on pension, do they? I mean, it's
so taxes on their pensions?
Yeah, I don't think we pay tax on pension.
You don't think so?
I don't know.
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. I'm going to have to look it up to see if of course, you're going to pay taxes like if you import like luxury items or if you go and you know,
pay VAT and all of that.
Yeah. So those are the taxes you're paying. So do those taxes all go towards revenue, of course, and they all go towards offsetting the debt, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're 70, you're still paying this tax. You don't get out because you're 70.
This tax, yeah?
You don't get out by being 70.
Taxes and stuff.
Yeah. So you're here with us. We're all in this together. Okay. All right. Now, there's a wider conversation to be had about fiscal responsibility, and you touched on that point before the break, Kelechi. So yes, almost every government borrows. Even the United States of America borrows, right? But there's responsible borrowing and there's irresponsible borrowing. How does the Nigerian government view fiscal responsibility? What principles do they use as their guide?
So they have a debt to GDP ceiling of about currently now at the 46 trillion naira because the DMO has not added it yet. So at the 46.25 trillion debt, I think it was 23.2%. And I think they have a limit of about 45 or 46%. Their ceiling. So you know what debt ceilings are like. America is saying now they need to extend their debt ceiling unless they run out of money. So debt ceiling is like something you artificially set to say, okay, I'm not borrowing beyond, I won't borrow beyond this. So it would be nice to calculate. I did not calculate it. I think the World Bank estimates contract 400 plus billion. So it would be nice if you could just convert let's say 46.25 plus 22.7 as 67 each trillion to dollars, and then find out what percentage of our debt to GDP that is. So what I'd like to really even say, the consequence of this is that it crowds out private sector and even states from being able to borrow at reasonable terms. And because of the increased debt means that the rate at which other people will be able to borrow in the country is going to be quite high, because you just put this debt on the national debt. So this 46.25 trillion that we have now is federal government, state government, and maybe even local government. But basically, you get the point. Now you add this, and what happens is the federal government's own ways and means bond is everywhere, is so much, it's in the market. And then this 9%, so what I should say is you have a secondary market. So if I bought this ways and means bond right at 9%, I can go sell it to you in the secondary market. Like, you didn't buy it, but I sell it to you. So that's the secondary market. Now, if the secondary market yield is like 10%, that means you bought it from me at like 10 or 11%. It means that next time the federal government wants to borrow, people in the market will not quote 10 or 11% for them. I don't even know how they arrived at 9%. I think maybe something like they arbitrarily chose. I don't know. Because, like I said, a lot of the other bonds out there that the federal government is holding, the yields on those bonds are above 9%. Yeah. So
we've got a message here.
So already, okay.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Finish that thought. I thought you were done.
So already, I was going to say, Moody's now has Nigeria's credit rating at CCA1, which is quite low, really, really low. And it means that when Nigeria is going to, that's why Nigeria said they can't go to the Eurobond market or the international market. Because if they want to go there, they're going to quote astronomical prices, double-digit % prices for them. And when we collected our Eurobonds, it was like 6-7%-ish.
Okay. Now, I've got a message here from Francis, who's listening to us from Amagunze in Enugu State. Francis says, borrowing in a single year should be curtailed. The National Assembly should make legislation towards that effect to avoid over-borrowing. Our leaders should think of harnessing our own resources. But you see, that's the thing, Kelechiku. We already have laws that curtails borrowing. It's those laws that have now been broken, which is why we're having this conversation to begin with.
Exactly, because there are no penalties are fixed to them. That's why.
Which brings me to my next question. Go ahead.
So, sorry, Sandra, just a moment. What I should also say is that money is supposed to be paid that year.
Yes.
That money that the federal government borrowed from the CBN is supposed to be returned that year.
Yeah. It's not supposed to be carried over.
That's another aspect of that. It's not supposed to be carried over.
Okay, so it brings us to the question of legality, and we've touched on legality a bit before the break. There's a legal limit to how much the federal government could borrow from the CBN. What should have been the consequences, as far as you are concerned, from your perspective as an analyst?
Jail term.
Jail term for who?
Yes.
Jail term
for the CBN governor and. But the CBN governor is not above immunity.
So CBN governor doesn't have
immunity.
And the
Minister of Finance.
Why these two people? Why should they be the ones going to jail?
They have to be the four guys because you can't touch the president, right?
Right.
The finance minister is the one who does the budget. The budget office is in the Ministry of Finance.
Right.
The finance minister does the budget, and then the DMO approves and tells them, okay. No, so this doesn't even go through GMO, Sandra.
Right.
You see why this is so different from other borrowings? It doesn't go through the DMO.
Right.
So it's like real urgency. It's like, guy, beg, I need this money. You understand? I need this money, I'll pay you next week. I need this money, I'll pay you next 2 weeks.
Right.
That's why the regulations around debt, normal debt, does not apply to it. The DMO is not, it's like the DMO is not even involved in this. Because every debt, the DMO looks at rules and regulations for the state to borrow money. The DMO looks at rules and regulations. 250% of your revenue, that's your total debt portfolio for a state. 250% of your revenue, your debt servicing, 40% of your revenue for the preceding year. And before the DMO will allow you to go outside and borrow money as a state. Now, you have added this massive, humongous, one organ debt on top of the states.
All right, Lagos, join the conversation. 0700-993-993. It's interesting that we're talking about the DMO because the Director General of the Budget Office, Ben Akabueze, raised alarm, saying that our debt to revenue ratio is worsening and it could spell doom if the country continues to exceed its borrowing limit. He was saying this to the incoming legislature. And it does seem like the incoming legislature has quite the daunting task before it. Now, let me come to the phone lines a bit and then we'll come back to Kilichukwu. 0700-993-993-993 01465-7190. Hi, good evening.
Hello, good evening, Auntie Sandra.
Good evening, sir. What's your name? Hello? Oh, call us back if you can. Hi. That's unfortunate. Good evening. Sorry about that. Give us a call back if you can. Hello? Hello? Okay. All right. We'll come back to that. But yes, Kilichukwu, what do you think is currently facing the 10th National Assembly? Because we have this humongous debt, but we still have budget cycles to get through, at least for the next 4 years. What should any smart National Assembly be doing going forward?
Penalize the breach of the CBN, the Section 38 of the CBN Act that says it's wrong to exceed ways and means and is wrong to securitize it. Put a penalty on that. There was a law asking for Section 41 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act and also Section 12 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act to be amended to also put a penalty. So Section 12 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act says that if you are going to borrow money, it has to be for something, that makes sense. Something you don't borrow to pay salaries. That's basically what it says. And again, they've borrowed to pay salaries, right? And there's no punishment. So criminalize Section 12 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Unfortunately, you can't criminalize Section 41, but just say that reward it to make it impossible for the president to determine when we go above 3% of the debt threshold. That may be a bit difficult because you say, okay, we are going through serious stuff, security times, and that's the clause. For all the money that they've even been borrowing at above the 3% ceiling per year, has the security even improved? So these are some of the things that they need to do, right? These are some of the things, and then they need to make sure that their oversight on what the government is doing with money is tougher. So no borrowing to pay debt.
Now you're taking a look.
I'm sorry, no borrowing to pay salaries.
Yes. So we're about to borrow $800 million for palliatives.
Yes, sorry,
removal.
Sandra, that's true. $1.3 billion is what they've borrowed in total. If you add the 800 million,
yeah,
they borrowed 500 million for the conditional cash transfer, and that 500 million was specifically for the cash transfer. And they spent 16 billion. That's 128 billion in 2016 terms. They spent 16 billion. It has reached 2 million people. But there's a governor that wants to build a 20.5 meter deep port in Bakassi in Cross River. And the whole Cross River people don't like him. But that's an absolutely great project. Why are we putting Lekki Deep Sea in crowded small Lagos that does not even have plan for rail line? Why has Tinubu been floating Badagry Seaport again in Lagos that is already crowded? Why are you not putting ports in the south? Why are we not liberalizing trade? You get? Why are we not having like this conversation? But you are borrowing 1.3 billion to pay 5,000 and 20,000 grants that has reached only 2 million people. When your NDS, your Bureau of Statistics, is telling that multi-dimensional poverty is 133 million people. So how smart is that? And they say that they did not have any alternative. It was very urgent. It has choked them. So that's why they had to break the law.
Kilichukwu, let's draw the curtains there. Thank you very much for your time on today's show. Kilichukwu Ogu is an analyst at SBM Intelligence. SBM Intelligence is, well, like the name suggests, an intelligence gathering organization. Kilichukwu, thanks for your time this evening.
Thank you.
All right, Lagos, let's talk about this ways and means debt. Do you think the National Assembly should have approved the debt? Do you agree with the spokesperson, the Senate leader, who says, well, they simply had no choice but to do what they've done? How do you feel about having to pay Gbese for the next 40 years? 99.3, hello.
Hello, yeah.
Yeah,
Sandra,
what's your name? Good evening.
Yeah, my name is Lumbado Solomon.
Talk to me, Solomon.
Okay, first of all, I'm not supporting Senate approving. But I'm not expecting them not to approve because I know when they are choosing their Senate president and all that, you know what they normally do. My own problem is that the incoming one has started the same way. You know, instead of you to ensure that the Senate have their independence, you will go and pick somebody that will be faster and they will put it there. Likewise, the CBN. That is where the problem. The institution in Nigeria that's supposed to be independent, the executive have watered down everything. You can imagine how much Buhari government has even surpassed in borrowing. He said 5%, they've done more than 24%. Nobody will waste on nothing, and you cannot see it. These are debt they are living for you and I. Problem everywhere, and even in the future, we started again. Senate president, they will pick. House speaker, they will pick. You know, all sorts of things. This nation, that everybody is living. Nobody wants to stay in Nigeria. No future, nothing for this nation. So disappointed. Even for the incoming one, we thought maybe this one would be better for where they started. APC government, I don't know whether they are good for Nigeria or a woe to Nigeria.
All right, Solomon, thanks for calling. We'll leave it at that. When we come back from this break after the news at 6, I brought bread from my travels. If you want a piece of that bread, I've got bread for 2 people. So I had bread for 4 people. I gave two yesterday. I gave away 2 yesterday. I'll give the other 2 away at 6:15. All you have to tell me is what I missed while I was away. What did I miss while I was on leave? That's it. You tell me what I missed while I was on leave, you get bread.
From Lafarge, please sign here.
What are you?
And I want to assume that you would run because I want to give the listeners context for the conversation.
In 2019, you were running mate to Atiku Abubakar. What did you learn then that you will not repeat this time?
Yes, when is the president coming out to address us?
There's a few things. One, I have a burden and a passion for young people.
The fact that you have elected a man does not mean then you begin to order him around. The president will do whatever is good for the country at any given time.
Mr. Adeshino, isn't the president responsible to the people?
What should the next president do to root out stakeholders who are complicit?
You fire those that need to be fired are fired.
It's looking like a brand new Chelsea, attacking with so much fluidity. And what can you say about that, Martin? I know you follow Chelsea quite closely.
I live close to the Chelsea training ground. That's what you mean by that. I'm not.